This is the Rare Occasions and their most notable song, Notion. They're an indie rock band that are New England born who create and play music from their LA homes. How have they gotten there? Well, let's go back to the start. First, let me clear some things. This is going to be a summary of their story so far as a band, and hopefully a timeline with every lost piece of media me and a couple friends have scrapped from the edges of the internet. Now, let's start.
I was just alone.
Around the year 2008, in Barrington, Rhode Island, 3 middle school boys had a passion for music and decided to start a jam band called The Valor. These 3 boys were Rockwell Richards, the bassist, Luke Lassarette, the guitarist, and Brian McLaughlin, the keyboardist. They do simple stuff like playing around with 12-bar blues and just generally having fun. Brian and Luke began writing their own songs, and around this time they introduced their drummer, Luke Imbush. Quoted from Last FM, with a new drummer reminiscent of Carter Buford and a vocalist that would be later described as sounding like a young, less gritty Robert Plant, there was an air of excitement surrounding the future of this young band. They wrote into their senior year with a total of 21 songs, 2 albums, an EP, and a whole lot of good music. The 4 go on to graduate and then begin prepping for college. Brian McLaughlin and Luke Imbush both go to the greater Boston area for their studies. Luke had been accepted into Berklee College of Music for what is assumed to be drumming and classical training studies, though Brian had taken a different turn at the nearby Tufts University, where he was studying for an electrical engineering degree and did some track too. They were still able to keep in touch and play music together because they were so close, but Luke had met a friend at Berklee, Jeremy Cohen, who at the time was doing a double major of electric bass and music education until later on when he switched out of music education for music therapy. He also played some jazz. Here's a short clip in the background with him on bass. Anyways, he had introduced the 2 to each other and they began playing the 3 of them together. Though, before we can continue, there was a 4th member of the band that is very hard to find much about, so some details may be vague or outright untrue. Around the same time Jeremy had joined, another guitarist had joined from being Brian's classmate at Tufts University. His name was Peter Stone. The 4 began writing music as a band, calling themselves the Custodians, which was later changed to the Rare Occasions. They did what any band did, and played around town doing covers, playing in battle of bands, even winning some.
So it's anyone's game, I think.
I think maybe because we're louder.
Moving swiftly on, they wrote their demo recordings EP with 6 songs. They recorded it in various practice rooms at Tufts and Berklee, even Brian's basement across from Tufts for one of the songs, but quoted from Tro, only in the lonely rooms that needed company. They released it on October 12, 2012. What people didn't know was that there was actually 7 songs. The known 6 are the Uke Song, Wickeden Kids, The Goal, Modern Minds, Such is the Way, and So the Sun Must Rise Again. But the 7th one was Miss Mary Mac, which was actually moved from demo recordings to their second EP, Apple Fork. What's strange though is they never put demo recordings on Spotify or Apple Music. It was difficult to find, but thankfully some rando assumed college student on YouTube put the songs out on their channel many years back. They quickly began to grow from there, playing locally to the point where they won the WBRU FM Rock Hunt 2013, which was a Rhode Irish Battle of the Bands contest. Now, there are many events that I'm going to outright skip out on, because frankly, you don't need to hear a description for every event that's happened, but at the end of the video, there will be a complete timeline with everything I can find. Moving on, they continued to write music in 2013. They released their next EP, Apple Fork. As of now, it consists of 5 songs: Bat and Lashes, Miss Mary Mac, Scarlet Lies, Getaway, Silhouettes. These songs had moved them up in the world, giving them another wave of listeners. A little personal note of mine, their earlier stuff had this one synth feel that I absolutely adore and miss. They had such a wide array of inspirations that were so varied that it's hard to believe that they just jumped from one another. Here's some examples. The 4 of them were inspired by Franz Ferdinand, Arctic Monkeys, The Strokes, The Killers. Brian liked keeping up with locals like Bent Shapes. Jeremy liked Queen of the Stone Age, Brushy One String, and Radiohead. fact, he was in a Radiohead-based ensemble at Berkeley. Keep in mind, this was years ago, and people's music tastes can change in an instant. Back to the timeline, they had written and released their next very sentimental EP, Feelers, on May 6, 2014. The EP was built up of 5 songs: Dysphoric, Fell Through, Good Night, Half-Heartedly, La Morte. The song Dysphoric actually won them the John Lennon Songwriting Contest of the Year in 2014. From there, they continued writing and playing locally. Although growing as a band, there isn't much to talk about in these years. They continued studying in college and playing locally at places like the Middle East Restaurant in Boston. Meanwhile, they released a single called An Actuary Retires on October 13, 2015. And getting right back into it, they did a collaboration with Tegmental for a Christmas song called The Glow, which later they released on their own with some edits. One of my personal favorite songs. Brian's voice sounds very whispery in this one. Shortly after, they traveled to California to play a show at the Anaheim Convention Center called the NAMM 2016 show. Now, on to August 5th, 2016, when Future Proof was released. The songs were Loaned, Future Proof, Bug Eyes, and last but not least, Notion. But it didn't blow up yet, so we'll talk about it more later. But the EP release did a show 8 days later, again in the Middle East Restaurant and nightclub. Not too much happened notably in 2017, they were just being a band, writing and playing. In 2018, they released Into the Shallows, which was their first fully fledged album. It consisted of Clover, The Shallows, Mercy Mercy, You Weren't Meant to See That, Backwards, Shutting You Out, Posts, Tether, Physics, For You. Soon after, they had an Into the Shallows tour around the majority of the US. Now, a major moment for Tro happens when COVID hits. Not everything is known, but what is believed to have happened is that Brian and Luke were both in Los Angeles, California, but Jeremy and Peter were in Massachusetts. They began writing virtually the Big Whoop album, which goes as planned, but at least for listeners, out of the blue, Peter leaves the band. What I think happened was that Peter did not like the idea of moving to LA, but Luke had wanted to because of job offerings to make extra money, like composing for movies and shows. Jeremy and Brian had ultimately decided to follow Luke's lead, but Peter refused the offer. Now this could be the first reason, but from another source, Peter might have also simply wanted to write his own music instead of being associated with Tro. We don't know the truth, and that's fine. There's no reason to pry on that. From then on, the band was just the 3 of them. Playing and writing through COVID, in 2021, Tro released Big Whoop. The songs included were Alone, Bolts, Control, Stay, Origami, Sparrow, Call Me When You Get There, The American Way, Do Not Do Drugs, Cynical, Set It Right, The Fold. Though they wouldn't be so stagnant anymore. In late 2021, out of nowhere, their song Notion blew up on TikTok.
Sure, it's a calming notion, perpetual in motion, but I don't need the comfort of any lies, for I've seen the ending and there's no ascending rise. Oh,
At first, they thought it was a joke, until they started being reached out by large studios. They now had a large fan base discovering all their past releases over the last 10 years and now eager to see their next set of songs. They quickly took advantage of the hype, making a Notion acoustic, getting more excitement from their fans. They also give a peek to their next EP by showing off 2 songs early, Seasick and Not Afraid. November 4th, 2022, they released Attaboy with 6 songs. Seasick, Not Afraid, Start This Over, Caterpillar, Turn Around, Because You Love Me. People instantly fall in love. In fact, Start This Over got 1 million views on YouTube. They later did an Attaboy tour featuring these songs. And not even a couple months after, they went on a tour with Somersault to open for them, showing off an unreleased song called Black Balloons. Now, as promised, here is the timeline. I'm Tommythan H, and thank you for watching. I'm very excited to see the future of Tro, as they are my favorite band, hands down. There's so much more I wanted to include about the music itself because they're just such unrecognized geniuses, but this video is already way longer than needed.